Hey everybody, it's Anna J. Wellner with the Author Library and the Bookish Nook. Today I am thrilled and nearly speechless to have Katee Robert with me today. Katee, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come on the show and talk with me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, not nearly as excited as I am to have you on. I know that everyone right now has either read Neon Gods or is getting ready to read Neon Gods and anxiously awaiting the release of Electric Idol coming out next year, along with a host of other. If you guys don't follow Katee on TikTok, you have to. Number one, hilarious. Number two, she keeps you up to date on everything that's going on, and you have got a ton of stuff coming in 2022.
Yeah, I honestly don't even know what year it is anymore. I'm just finishing up
Really,
writing a book right now that's out in 2023, and it's very what's time? But yeah, there should be 6 releases out next year, I think. I'm slowing down. It's working out really well.
Awesome. Yeah, Electric Idol is part of the Dark Olympus series. If you guys don't know, it follows different members of the, which originate from Greek mythology, the different members of the 13, the original 13, who are in the city. And each book kind of follows a different couple or a different throuple or whatever the case might be.
Yeah, there's going to be a polynaught in book 6, 4. I'm very excited.
I love that. I love that we are starting to explore and really open up ourselves to reading and accepting more, the differences that people have in their personal lives whenever it comes to sensuality. And you do a wonderful job of not only illustrating that, but also showing how to do it in a safe way, emphasizing consent, protection, which is so amazing.
Yeah, I would say the romance community as a whole usually is a lot better about that than we were 10 years ago. Because I've been doing this for about 10 years, and consent and protection, all that was just starting to be discussed on should we have this in all books sort of thing, in 2010. And so now it's super commonplace, but it's really fun. It's a fun thing for me to explore because consent, if done in a certain way, it's just another form of foreplay, because it's just oh, you into this? Yeah. Are you into this? Cool. Do you like what this is? And so it's just a way to increase that tension while also giving very clear, everybody's on board. It's going great.
No, I definitely love that. And at the beginning of, you have the Wicked Villains series as well. And I know there are a couple of books in there that feature non-con that have that in there. So non-consensual, we do discuss a little bit. And I think it's really important that people know the difference between implied consent and explicit consent, because there is a very big difference.
Yeah, and it's just, and I write dark romance, so there are times in certain books where it's a feature, not a bug, that it's a little more dubious. But as long as you content warning ahead of time so the reader knows what's going in, that, I feel the consent between the reader and the book is even more important than the consent written explicitly in, which is why I'm a big fan of content warnings, just because I don't want to be triggered as a reader, and I want my readers to have the best experience possible while reading my books. And if that means that they need to get a flag up of oh, this is contents included in this book, then better for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely, knowing kind of what you're getting into. But let me see. So I have to say something. Hermes and the coffee and the ice cream. Where did you get that? Do you do that? Because I have totally, no. I've done that before.
Really?
Butter pecan ice cream in coffee. And yes, whenever you run out of creamer, I have done it. I've absolutely done it.
It sounded delicious. I drink my coffee black. Like I don't really like hot sweet things just for me personally, but I was like, oh, this is just an extension of like, oh, like creamer. Yeah, yeah, like you said.
No,
And so
yeah.
it makes me happy that people do that in real life. That's awesome.
I don't know if everybody does it in real life.
Well, somebody
But
does.
well,
Yeah.
well, I'm weird, but but yeah, I have done it. So have you always been a fan of because a lot of what the content that you have out now is aside from the Wicked Villain series, which is based on Greek mythology, the Iliad, the Odyssey, the gods and goddesses that we all know. Have you always kind of had a fascination with that, or did you just
Yes,
decide to?
absolutely. I
Yeah.
I found the Odyssey in like fourth grade. Like I don't
Uh-huh.
remember the specifics, except I did it in a book report, which I don't recommend doing the Odyssey in a book report. You have to say it in like 5 minutes, like everything that happens in it. It's not great. And definitely like most of it went over my head because fourth grade. But I have, come back to Greek mythology again and again and again. I had a really intense phase in like high school where I was really into it. But it just always it like hurts so good because it's tragedy. It's all tragedy. And all I ever wanted, even before I read romance, like was just like, I want them to be happy. Like they should be happy now. And it's like not turned into a constellation or murdered or turned into a tree or like, a bear. Like, so it's just like the Greeks are great at tragedy, but I definitely craved like happy endings for these characters that I really love, or these, gods and goddesses that I really loved. And so when it came time to write Dark Olympus, like we start with Hades and Persephone, which sort of have like something resembling a happily ever after in mythology. And the second book is Psyche and Eros, which again follows that format where they like end up together at the end and not dead. But after that, it's like, okay, like what next? And so the series kind of becomes my like justice for like this character, or like down with this. Can I swear on this? I don't.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, down with this fuckboy. So like Paris can die in a fire. And the third book is Helen, Achilles, and Patroclus. And Paris can, I mean, he can die in a fire as far as I'm concerned. My feelings on Paris are not like confusing if you read when you read the book. But and then just as the series continues, it's going to be just like couples or thruples or poly knots that I think that would have worked out really well together. And me just putting the KB Roberts spin on them, which is not accurate mythological retellings. They're not accurate. There's no gods. They're like titles. They're not like magical beings.
Nobody answer like your test questions after reading reading the Dark Olympus series.
I don't understand. There's no kinky BDSM club in this. That doesn't. I don't. Yeah. They're definitely just like, kind of like my spin on it. But I'm honestly though, it's interesting to see the responses of people who read the series and know some of the plans that I've planned, I guess, going forward. Is that a lot of people have a lot of strong feelings about Greek myths, which is super awesome because me too. But I'm not necessarily going to be telling the stories in the way that if like you're looking for an accurate like Madeline Miller retelling, like you're not going to get it from me. And that's okay. It's like the Fast and Furious version of Greek mythology. Like that's my books.
Love that. That is like that needs to be the tagline. Like seriously, the Fast and Furious, version of the Iliad and Odyssey. But you do put little nuggets in there, that I having read. Do you? I mean, I had to pick up on the names of the puppies that Persephone gives them, the Scylla and Charybdis, and it's kind of a little indicative, a little bit of foreshadowing, and we're going to dip, but a little bit of foreshadowing when she makes the decision here, right after that. Was that a little bit of foreshadowing for those who really do know their Greek mythology?
Yes, I definitely like.
You sneak some stuff in.
Yeah, if you've never read Greek myths, you're not going to be lost in my books for the most part. But if you have read and are familiar with them, like there are nods throughout all of the stories to the various like original content. And it's just kind of like my way of like, I get a little delight when I'm writing and like, I'm going to put this in, this is fun. But I feel like readers who are aware of it and catch those Easter eggs also get a little bit of that delight too. So it's kind of a win-win.
Yeah, no, it absolutely was. In fact, that is one of my favorite sayings is whenever I'm like, you look, you're seriously putting me between Scylla and Charybdis right now. And people are like, the fuck did you just say? And I'm like, oh, it's actually, that's kind of where we got the term between a rock and a hard place, if you want to, anyway. But yeah, I thought that was so super cool. And I felt like so smart for thinking that I had figured it out.
You did, yes.
But I've seen that the Dark Olympus series actually kind of dovetails in with the Wicked series villain Wicked villain series just a little bit. You'll see some characters sprinkled.
Yeah, they so I wrote Wicked Villains obviously because the Wicked Villains is finished as of now. I may go back at some point. I don't have active plans to, so like, we'll see what happens. But I actually, the title system for Dark Olympus was created because I wanted to tell Hades and Persephone, but I'd already had a Hades in Wicked Villains, and I was like, obviously their happily ever after is secured, like I'm not going to mess with that, but like, how do I have two Hades in the same world? Like, how would that work? And then I was like, well, if there's a title and there's always a Hades, but it's not necessarily the same person, so there's always a Hades in Olympus, but it's a title. That particular title is one that's passed down from parent to child. And so there's two Hadeses, and yeah, there's like connections and stuff like that. You won't see it as much in the Dark Olympus series because the nature of the series is kind of moving away from, it's like very focused on Olympus, but right. There are like nods in the Wicked Villain series to Olympus.
I think that's so cool whenever you're able to sprinkle in those kind of things. And you've been like, the Wicked, is it the Wicked Villains that will be having the swag boxes that are coming out next year?
Yes. So I ended up doing a Kickstarter for them
which funded in like 36 seconds.
It was like 5 minutes. I was like, what? And so they'll be shipping out next year. The books themselves, like they are gonna have hardcovers with like illustrated covers, but they're like older school illustrated covers that are very sensual and reflective of the content. But those books will actually be for sale next year, sometime after I ship all the rewards, because Kickstarter people get them first.
Right.
But yeah, it's the series had gotten a really awesome response on TikTok that like just sort of blew me away this year. And now that I have the ability to do hardcover, self-published, it was just self-indulgent. I was like, I really want to do like the illustrated covers for this series. Like, I think that'd be awesome and fun. And like, I want it. And I think maybe somebody would want it too. And then like the response to me talking about it, I was like, what if I did a swag box? Like, cause I'm very strategic, but I'm also super impulsive. So I'm like, oh yeah, if I'm going to do this, like maybe I'll do a swag box. And like the response to that was very overwhelming, which is why I did Kickstarter, to make sure everybody who wanted in could get it without me limiting it. And then trying to figure out reprints and stuff. It's like, now you get one chance and then the books will be out and you can grab the books. And yeah, well, it's my house is full of boxes and most of the stuff's not here yet. So it's going to be really fun to package and ship all of these things in the spring.
I did see, like I said, if you guys don't follow Katee on TikTok and Instagram and well, everywhere, really, make sure that you do, because I saw that you do have the cards, some of the placard, the little cards, the cards that have come in.
Yes, the cards. I have all like one of the add-ons, because the response was so overwhelming. I was like, I guess I need add-ons. Like, I just figured out on the fly. Thankfully there was a couple artists available to like work with me, but one of the add-ons was like not safe for work postcards of the various couples and thruples and whatnot. And so those all showed up, which of course I was like halfway through packing, because they're going to go in envelopes. So if people want to do unboxings, they aren't going to be like boobs in their face. Like I'm trying to make it as safe. And
right. Like, you don't want your kid opening like thinking it's a leftover Christmas present, and then they're
Well, and my elder kids are both teenagers and they're going to help me pack it. And I also don't need them being like, Mom. And I mean, they're aware of what I do, obviously, but
right.
like, I was like, I should be like a somewhat responsible parent. So they're just going to go in envelopes. And then like the envelope will go in the orders that did that. But I actually realized that one of the postcards is wrong. So I had to like reorder it. So I was like, I guess that'll wait too. But yeah, things are moving there. It's a lot of hats that I wear.
No kidding. And so for a lot of people, they don't quite understand. I mean, I don't want to say a lot of people don't, but independently published or self-published, and then traditionally published. We hear those terms bandied around quite a lot, especially in the author talk, book talk community. But no one really talks a lot about being hybrid published, and that is something that you are a hybrid published author. And can you kind of explain that to people?
Yeah, I actually, when I got started, I published with a small independent press, and then I was fully traditional for several years. And then the traditional market is heavily influenced by like what they decide sells, and
Right.
it shifted to rom-coms. And obviously, I don't write rom-coms, so like I could not sell a book to save my life. And so I was like, all right, I guess like I feel like my readers are still there. Like obviously they're still there, so I'm gonna just go indie hard, and pay my bills hopefully. And so I've been primarily indie since like 2018, like halfway through. And but I am not like I kind of flail chaotically through promotion. Like it's not my strong point. Like I can get excited and like talk about stuff, and that gets people excited, but it's not a consistent thing that like a successful career can be built on, like longevity. And so when like the villain series was getting some buzz, and I knew I wanted to write Greek myths, and I just happened to sit down with an editor at a convention, and she's like, well, what are you working on? And I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to indie publish these Hades and Persephone retelling. And she's like, okay, but like, can you give me a chance to like offer on this, because I really want this? And I was like, I mean, I guess. And I am privileged enough that I write really fast. And so I was like, okay, this can be an experiment. Like I will give you 3 books, which obviously I didn't say this like this, but I was like, I talked to my agent about it, and I was like, I can give her 3 books. If it fails, it fails. And like, it's time lost, but it's not the end of the world. But like, if it succeeds, traditional has a little bit better reach with placements with like books, which is hilarious because I sold this, and then the Villains series is in Barnes and Noble all the freaking time now because of TikTok. But like Neon Gods has been like wildly successful, like wilder than any of us could have dreamed. And it's obviously working out. We've contracted through like book 7, I think. Yeah, book 7 at this point. Like the second book's not even out. It's really wild. But so I'll have 2 releases in that series each year going forward until it's over, or unless we get to book 7. And then the rest of my releases are for the most part indie.
Gotcha.
We'll see how it goes. It's a nice balance for me, because I have the structure of traditional in like this one series, and the rest of it I can be chaotic, and I can just like be like, oh, I'm just going to write a book and release it, and here it is. Or just like nobody really is asking for this.
Or Krampus Love Tale.
Or Krampus Love Tale. I wanted to write Krampus for a really long time, and so it was like I wasn't going to write a full book on it, but it's a nice little like newsletter magnet that is free for my newsletter people, that if you want to read about a dirty Krampus and like the monster action is fully realized and the tongue is fully not an opportunity missed, then sign up for my newsletter.
Go sign up for the newsletter, y'all. So have you reached the end of where you want to take Dark Olympus, or is it still kind of open-ended? Like I could, if I wanted to, push,
I sat down. So
or can you say?
I can say because like things change. So this is not set in stone by any means. Like it's already changed from like but when I originally like envisioned the series, I you know how like sometimes an author will sell books or publish a series or whatever, and it'll take off, and you can see sort of like where they stopped planning the series because they thought that was going to be the full series, and then there's sort of that little leg in the middle before they catch their like wind again. I didn't want that to happen because I was like, okay, we're just going to plan, and like, because again, it was supposed to be indie. And so I'd actually planned out through 9 books, like not heavily detailed, just sort of the arcs of the overall world building, like so that the tension continues to rise and like accumulation. I obviously the plans have changed somewhat because I did not plan on Eurydice, Charon, and Orpheus being a menage, like, but I'm really excited about it. But if
I'm glad Charon's getting some play, because I mean, it's like, you know, he's always, you know, portrayed as, you know, the farrier of the souls over the river of Styx, and so I mean that's like his. I mean that's it. I mean that's like all you get out of the guy. I mean that's like his job, and that's all you get. So I'm glad he's getting a little love.
Yeah, that was partially influenced by the Hades game because I mean he's like hooded and whatever and like raspy and doesn't speak or whatever in that, but I was like, oh, Karen's all over the place. Like, and if Eurydice went to the underworld and back out and then back in, you know, that's a lot of contact with him. And I realized that's not quite how that works, but it does in my head. So, but yeah, so if in the best case scenario, if everything goes like swimmingly all the way through, it would be about 10 books. That's where I have it. Like, I know where I want to end. But we'll see how it goes. That's we're on book 2, so I'm writing book 4. I have to finish it tomorrow, so I have time to like just sort of see what happens, because that's a really long series for traditional. Like 7 books is already really long for traditional, so we'll just see what happens.
And yes, Electric Idol will be out next year, the beginning of next year, in
January 18th.
January 18th. So guys, continue the obsession with Dark Olympus. And then who knows what other passion projects might pop up along the way.
I have some plans. It's my goal. Next year we'll see. Next year, like, I'm playing fast and loose because I kind of burn out this year, so I'm having to slow down and be a little more intentional with how many projects I'm taking on. But I'd started a fantasy that with a high heat level this year, and it's with my agent right now, like the first 30K or whatever. So like, obviously TikTok has proven, and I mean not just TikTok, but it's very apparent on TikTok that we love fantasy that like, you know, Fox. And I cut my teeth on fantasy as a teenager and like a junior higher and like whatever. And so it exists out there, obviously, but it's really heavily indie right now because traditional likes to keep their like fantasy without the sexy stuff, and like sexy stuff with like some fantasy elements. But like Milla Vane is an exception. Her fantasy is A+ content. But I want to sell a fantasy with a high heat level to traditional and like force them to acknowledge that it's a thing that people want, which is a silly, like a weird reason to be like, yeah, I want to go traditional with this because I want to force them. But also, you know, I'm spiteful and I think that it's a thing that people want. So
yeah, sometimes, you know, a lot of people are forced to, I don't want to say forced, a lot of people choose to go self-publish because, you know, the ideas that they have are so unique or so spicy that traditional publishing is a bit hesitant and reserved, guarded to commit to something that may or may not, you know, be a bit of a risk to put a lot of heft and money behind. So
traditional really underserves marginalized communities too, which is why like when people are like, oh, this doesn't exist, for the most part it does. It's just indie, and you just have to like look a little. You have to dig.
Yeah, which makes it difficult, but having that freedom as an individual, which you started out as not indie and then you turned indie, and then just so and then some on the side.
Yeah, I'm trying to be adaptable. Like we'll just, we'll see what happens. If I can't like do my spiteful selling of this and then I'll go indie with it and you'll get it sooner and that's a win-win for everybody too. So
Everybody pay attention, and whatever it is, go buy 3 copies of it and prove them wrong that we all want it.
Yeah, I think the tides might be changing, but we'll just see because the books sold right now are coming out in like 2 years. So I'm really curious on in like a year and a half, 2 years, what trends we'll see because they are paying attention to TikTok. Like finally.
Yeah, who knew that reverse harems would take off the way that they have? Who knew that? Well,
the communities who are into reverse harems are into reverse harems, and I completely understand. I wrote one, so yeah.
And dark fantasy, and the different kinds of kinks that are out there that are being explored in self-published or indie published books are really, really taking off. Mafia romance,
Yeah.
It's so funny to think, there was one TikTok where they're like, do you think that like the mafia even knows that there's like a whole book subgenre about them?
Ew. I hope not, because I feel like kidnapping as a love language is like great fictionally, less so in real life. Like
and and I think this needs to be, I think this needs to be more widely understood. Guys, it is fiction. What is written is fiction. It is no more so than watching a horror movie, Nightmare on Elm Street, and thinking that you have the ability to crawl into someone's brain in the middle of the night and induce them nightmares. So it is fiction. So I dislike, I don't want to say hate, but I really dislike whenever I see comments that are derogatory towards a certain trope or a certain, interest that someone derives pleasure from or escapism from. It's not real. It's not real.
When I do think that there are criticisms against like dark romance that are fair in that it's primarily white authors writing it about white characters, and I do think that that is something that should be examined, and we should be ensuring that we're supporting the non-white authors who are writing this genre because like it is really white. But I don't think that like the elements of the content itself for the most part is like, as an adult or even as a teenager, like I read Highlander romances and stuff as a teenager, and I never once was like, man, I definitely want to get thrown over. Oh God. Yeah. Like I don't want to get like thrown on the back of some dude's horse and taken places. Like that sounds awful in real life, but also like I'm going to keep reading because this is great. But I think that we do a disservice when we act like people can't tell the difference between fiction and reality with like, and sometimes you want to experience things fictionally in a very cathartic way. I think dark romance does a good job of kind of, you hit the horror beats of the very cathartic emotional release, and then you have the soft landing of romance. And so like you can go through all this stuff and experience these things and know it's going to be okay at the end. And I think that's part of the reason why it's so popular.
The people who write it don't endorse necessarily the things that happen in the books that you go out and do. That's like if I'm on my Tinder profile, I'm not going to say my first date, my ideal first date is to be placed on a die and to have my hands tied behind my back and to I'm not gonna ask someone to recreate a scene from Neon Gods.
No.
It's that's not,
Yeah, it's what
you don't expect it in real life, people.
Well, it's similar to like James Bond. Like, no, most people like are like, wow, James Bond is super, or not most people, but the fans of James Bond are like, wow, that's super exciting. Those fight chases, whatever. They're not like, oh, I'm gonna go jump off a bridge holding a thing and like hope it's gonna be okay. Like, I feel like some people just really like to feel self-righteous about things and feel like they're better. And we saw that with Dune. When the Dune came out, people are like, oh, these people can read like 27 YA books but can't read Dune. That's a reflection on Dune, not on like YA being like not a respectful genre. Like, calm down. So it's just the idea that people read for pleasure or to experience things that they don't want in real life is very foreign to some people. And it's strange to me because like I don't want I don't want to, I don't even know. Like I'm looking at my bookshelves, like, what do I not want to experience? I don't want to go to a fantasy world and like, go on a quest to be unwashed for weeks on end. Like that sounds terrible to me. I would definitely die in the first chapter. It'd be awful, but I love reading fantasy like the most.
I know if you think about the logistics of it, especially a female in a fantasy world, you're like, what is she, using, every 28 days? No one ever pees in these books. And it's you're like
no, you don't pee, you don't anything else. Like it's honestly the one thing I would like to see more of in romance. And I think that in subgenres it lends better than others is like menstruation, because we don't really see that all that it's there, but it's not as commonplace as like considering how many of these books have people with uteruses. The percentage of like people with uteruses who actually menstruate in romance novels is not particularly high.
Can we just have like one scene where the main love interest, the female love interest, is like, it's not a good time right now.
Right. Like, and I don't care if you're
can
okay
we wait
with
a week?
I'm good. Yeah.
let's bring the realism back there, guys. So what so what advice would you give other authors who are, just starting out or just getting, I always love to ask this too, especially people who are so respected and revered, who I'm sorry, I have to, but
I like, it's funny because I completely understand, but also for me, I'm just the person in like the sweatshirt who wears sweatpants every day and just like tells silly stories to my computer. Like, so it's wild to think that those stories have such an effect on like a number of people. I can't quite conceptualize it still, which is okay because
everyone wants to, achieve the things that you have. I mean, USA Today bestseller, New York Times bestseller, those are, fantastic achievements. And so, everyone thinks whenever they first start writing, and, myself, I went through that, and you think, oh yeah, man, I was just gonna, and at some point you get a bit disheartened. What would your advice be for them? Because you've been doing this for, for 10 years, you said.
Yeah, it'll be 10 years in March, I think. But honestly, like it's so easy to look around and just be like, holy crap, I'm never going to do this. I'm never going to like, be an independent author who spends $2,000 a day on ads or whatever number you can come up with. I'm never going to sell traditional. I'm never going to like to see all the stuff happening, because you're watching people who've been doing this and failing. Like I fail all the time. I have 3 separate books that within the last 3 years have gone on submission and not found homes. Like you don't see those failures, you only see the successes because they're flashy and cool and fun. But honestly, like, and I had to relearn this in 2018 because I had been just churning and writing and trying, and then suddenly I couldn't pay my bills. And that's when I went indies, because I was like, I can't sell a book. And the lesson I learned at that point is that chasing my joy and writing books without worrying about where they're going to find a home, and just writing the book like of my soul that brings me joy, that like makes me giddy and goofy and like like wearing the silly grin the whole time I'm writing, those are the books that succeed. Like Neon Gods, my agent and I sat down and talked about it. We could not have sold to literally anyone else. No one wanted it. No one would have even thought to ask for like a sexy dark romance about Greek gods or like mortal Greek gods.
Right.
It only went to this small publisher because they had the freedom to be innovative and to take risks the same way I was taking risks with them. It couldn't have sold anywhere else. And look what happened with it, with this book that was a long shot that I just wrote, that was like the book that brought me joy. So there's going to be disappointments. Even when you make it, it's ups and downs. This whole industry is like, it feels a little like gambling a lot, just because it's like the highs are really high, and then if you're around long enough, you're going to have the highs, and you're going to have like the dips where you're less relevant, and like it feels like other people are succeeding where you're just sort of like barely getting by. And just it sounds so cliche, but keeping your eyes on your paper, like what stories that you're telling and your path to publication, whichever way it is, like there's no right answer, it's whatever is right for you. that is the only thing that matters. And it doesn't matter if like there's no prestige in going traditional versus indie. There's no like you're not a better person for going indie versus traditional. Like it's whatever is best for you. And you just kind of need to set your own goals and your own, and ideally goals that you can control. Like setting a goal of being like, I want to hit the USA Today list is great in theory, but it's not super great because it's so far out of your control. Like my Wicked Villain series have never hit a list, not once. And they've made more money than any other of my series to date, like by hand over fist. But you can't see that because it hasn't hit a list. It's not flashy like that. And so setting the success goals for yourself, your own goalposts, will help you keep dialed in on things you actually want and the things that actually matter. And sorry, I feel like I'm like up on my like,
no,
but it's just I've learned a lot and like I made a lot of mistakes and I let external stuff motivate me. And I had a breakout hit in 2012 and then my sales dried up and I felt like a failure. And it was like, well, shit, I peaked. Like that's as good as it gets. And then as soon as I started chasing my joy, eventually the commercial success followed as well, which is, you know, in indie, it's easy to niche down and you don't have to sell as many copies to pay your bills, which is like my priority. But it's just, you know, your mileage may vary on everything. If what I say does not resonate, toss it in the trash. That's fine too. So
no, everyone's experience is different, but you just, you know, you so many people don't, I mean, so many people just look, I feel so fangirly, but I look up to you and I know that a lot of other people in the author community and the readers look up to you as well. And don't you just kind of want to turn around and say, hey, look at what Neon Gods did. And now it's going to be a 10-book series.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I'm heavily motivated by spite. And like I said, there were people early in my career that like, well, you peaked, like, good job. Or the people that, you know, didn't buy books for me or whatever. Like, you know, there's an element of like, like my book that is against trend does not have a cartoon cover, you know, it's not against traditional trend. Obviously,
right,
it's its own thing. And Neon Gods is right in there with that indie trends because that's what people want. I mean, they want a lot of things.
Blazed like, your own trail. You just went through the forest with a bulldozer. And sometimes that's what you have to do.
You know, like it's like in gambling, it's a risk that just happened to dovetail really nicely with like right time, right place, right story. And if this book had come out 3 or 4 years ago, it might not have been as successful just because it wasn't the right time. It's less a reflection of the book than it is the timing. And that's super frustrating because all that shit's outside your control. Like you can't, I can't control that TikTok found Neon Gods. Like I can't, you know, that was a thing that happened completely independently of me. You know, it's, you just kind of try to like learn to like, when the wave comes, you surf that wave as hard as you can. And then when it like eases out, then hopefully you've bolstered up your stuff so your success is more even than like wild.
Well, thank you so very, very much for coming on today. I have had an amazing time, and I know that our viewers have just loved to see. I love to. I seriously, you put every time I find one of your videos on TikTok, instant smile on my face because I just never know. And you are an absolute inspiration to so many people. One more question that I just thought of. What is really important that you include in your books? Because you are so caring, down to earth. I mean, open-minded. I'm trying to think of some more synonyms here. Individual. What's really important to you to have in your books?
I actually, and this is like a very
inclusive.
It's unique and not unique. It's so for me, I found Jennifer Lynn Barnes is an author who has several talks on like your id, like ego and id, like your id list and things that make you instantly go like, yes, the story. And when I learned about that and started making the list of things that bring me joy and like and it's very eclectic because I'm an eclectic person, but that it's just made for stories that are more joyful as a result. Like I stopped trying to be or to write to market or write books that I thought other people wanted. I wrote books I wanted, which has ultimately made, I mean, it makes me a polarizing author because the people that don't like my books really don't like my books, but the ones who do, it's our id list matches up, and so they know that like in the Katee Robert books, like it's going to be bonkers, it's going to be high heat level, it's going to be very tropey, and then we're all going to be okay at the end. Like the content might be dark-ish, but I'm never gonna like toss you fully into the deep end, at least without warning. So yeah, I just chase my joy, and as a result, that joy I feel like comes out in the stories, and like the readers pick up on it.
I absolutely love it. Guys, you know where to find her. I mean, you know where to find the books. If you haven't read Neon Gods yet, missing out. And make sure that you already have Electric Idol on pre-order, and whatever she's got coming up. Will the Wicked Villains swag boxes be available to the public?
There will be some extras. I don't know how many because it's going to depend on order minimums. So there will be some extras for sale after everything's shipped. It's going to be limited because I'm not reprinting anything, except the books, because like obviously the books are forever. But the swag itself will be limited to this run. So as many as there are, that's how many there are. If they're extras, they will be for sale. And then when they're gone, which is really hard for me because I'm just like, no, I'll make it forever. But no, I'm not going to. It's limited. I promise limited, and so it is limited.
All right. Make sure that you're following Katee everywhere on social media, so that you don't miss out when and if there are extras, so you can grab those up right after the beginning of the year. I think is whenever you said those will be coming out. Yep. And thank you again so much for coming on the show. I mean, I'm just like blown away to being able to, blessed by your presence.
Thank you so much for having me. Like I feel so like privileged to even be asked at any time that people might want to listen to the chaos that I have to say. So I'm really excited to be here. You're
absolutely amazing, and to be so humble when you're like, I mean, like the queen of spice. I mean, seriously. So they, everybody, if you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe to the channel and check out the links in the description below. I'll have Katee's website there, and also links to her Instagram and her TikTok and whatever else she would like for me to put in there, so that you guys can keep up with everything. Miss Katee Robert, thank you so much again. Everybody, happy holidays. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you later. Bye.